So let's start with a 3-tier architecture. A typical 3-tier architecture involves 3 layers basically, which is presentation layer, which is if your application is Windows application, it's a Windows application part. If it's a web application, then the website part of yours is called the presentation layer. Basically, presentation layer represents the UI component of your application. So in a typical 3-tier architecture, there are 3 layers like presentation layer, business layer, and data access layer. Data access layer is there to interact with the database. So the requirement goes like, okay, I'll just so this is how thing goes. Presentation layer calls the business access layer calls the data access layer. Okay. Normally, the architecture that we are going to explain is that there will be one per UI layer. There will be one business layer. So per UI page, that is per ASPX page, we will have one business layer. The page will call the business layer. Business layer will call the data access layer to get the data. And in this scenario, we require another component which actually is a floating component known as DTO. So DTO is basically used both in data access layer, business access layer, as well as presentation layer, right? So data access layer will contain, designing data access layer, there are multiple architectures involved. So one of them is table gateway design pattern. Table gateway, what happens is, so whatever table you have, let's say I have a customer table, so I'll create a customer class which will hold properties for each and every column that are there in the customer table, right? So this is my complete data access layer. But sometimes what happens is, for one page I may not require the entire customer data. Let's say there are hundreds of columns, but I am interested in only 10 columns. So why should I pass the entire object from my data access layer to business layer, then business layer to presentation layer? It's of no use to me. Only 10 columns are of use to me. So what we do is we create intermediary components called DTO, which are data transfer objects. So like we'll create one project called DTO. There will be one customer DTO. Okay, customer DTO will be creating 10 properties only corresponding to the 10 columns that we want to use. So that way it will be less load on the network, right? So let's try to create this business scenario. So first of all, let's start with few projects. C# web application. We'll start with empty web application. Let's say it is my personal web. Okay, so this is my personal web, and I'll add another one. I'll add 2 class library project, 3 class library projects. One will be, so the naming convention goes like website name dot, you can give any name, business layer or val, whatever you want. So this is my business layer. I'll add 2 more projects to it. Data layer, GTO. So right, so these are the 3 layers that I have. So if your design is foolproof, you will be adding a reference to We'll add a reference in the website. I'll add a reference to the business layer and DTO only. Okay, the dependency is I'll add a reference to business layer and the DTO only. Okay, so my application will not interact with data access layer directly. Whatever interaction with the Dell will happen, that will be done via business access layer. Okay, so let's try to create business data access layer first. Okay, so what I'll do is just to save time, what I'll do in the data access layer, I'll add an item. We'll be using link to SQL or entity framework, which will be fast for us. Okay, so that data access layer creation has become very fast due to introduction of some ORM tools. ORM is object relational mapping that came up with link, and there are two frameworks that evolved simultaneously. One of them was link to SQL. Another was ADO.NET Entity Framework. Since ADO.NET Entity Framework was much more superior than link to SQL, Microsoft is not supporting link to SQL after version 3.5. Though it is still there, you can still use it, but no more developments are going to happen on link to SQL, since we already have a better framework in terms of ADO.NET Entity Framework. Okay, but for now, since it's just a demo, so I'll create a link to SQL class, which is an DBML file. Okay, let's say my database is Northwind, so I'll create a northwind.dbml file. So the DBML file has a design surface on which you can drag and drop tables from Server Explorer. You know how to connect a database via Server Explorer? So here you can do is click this and then change. I have a SQL Server database. Name of server, let's say I have SQL Express instance. Database name.
If we have online server, then we use
the
user SQL.
Yes, you can provide the server name here as well. So with Server Explorer, it's just like a management studio sort of thing inbuilt within Microsoft Visual Studio IDE. So for simple development, simple task related to a database, like seeing what information is there in database, firing simple queries, you don't need to have SQL Server installed on your machine. You can use the Express Edition version and the Server Explorer for your development. Right? So I have a NWIN database. This is not correct, but okay, I'll connect to it. So this is the instance. It was already there for me. I don't think it has any tables to it. So, but this is how you connect to a database. So I already have northwind.mdf connection created in my Server Explorer. I'll just expand the node and there will be tables. I select all tables and do a drag and drop. So when I do a drag and drop, what this DBML file will do for you is it will create a Dell for you. Dell using the table gateway or table adapter approach. What table gateway and table adapter approach does is whatever tables are there in database, it will create n number of classes. You can see the relationship as well among the tables. So you can have the relationships among table, customer demographic, customer demo, order details, and so on. Right? You just have to save it. Till you haven't saved it, if you go to northwind.designer.cs, it has automatically generated the designer.cs file for you, which will contain the code for you. So let's say customer table, there will be a customer.cs class having properties corresponding to the columns in the table. Okay, right now if you can see that there is not much code. I mean, if you go to this class, take customer demo, it has created some properties. I won't be going in depth right now, but this is the class that it has created. Okay, it has a customer ID, customer type ID, and so on. So it has automatically generated the Dell for you. You can see that This is the customer demo class. Okay, so I have a table in the database customer demo which has some fields. So what it has done is it has created properties corresponding to each and every column. There are lot more things that go into creating this class, but that is out of scope for now. Right now what we have done is we have done the part that we could have done manually, that is creating a one-to-one mapping between the database table and the class files. So for every table in database I have a C# class, okay, that has n number of properties. I mean all the columns that are there in the database in form of properties, and there are get and set accessors for both, right? So this is my del has been completed now. Okay, so I have written this because I don't want to write queries. I don't want to fire queries on the database, but still my del part, if I want, I can extend my del. So I'll just show you how to create my del. So I'll create, since the purpose of this sample is let you know about the 3-tier architecture and how they were made initially. So I'll tell you, we will create a class. If the table name is customer, we'll take a customer data access layer. So this is my customer del. So now this is the class that will be talking to my business access layer. So whenever somebody wants to insert, update, delete anything into the customer table, it will be done via this customer del. So what I'll do is, first of all, I want all customers. So public list of customer get customers. Okay, since I want all the customers, I don't need any parameter. I want, it's like select star from customer. So how can I do that? I'll create an object of, when you generated the DBML file, automatically a class is generated for you which is your DBML file name and appended data context. So Northwind data context is the file name, context, okay, then I'll do context dot okay. So what I'll do is I'll do context dot customers return, which returns me a I enumerable. So to list. So that's how I have created a get customer method. Similarly, what I'll do is, so with this approach, with this data context and DBML file approach, I don't need to worry about how and what query is being fired to the database. I'm just concerned about the results. That is the purpose of entity framework and DBML file. Okay, I'm not concerned about how you are firing queries to database, in what manner. I'm just concerned about the results, right? So this is
context dot customers is the table name.
Yeah.
It will return all the values of the table. Value from the table.
Get customers will return all the data from the customer table. It will do a select star from customers and return the list to me, right? So similarly, customers, I'll be using link here. I want a customer where customer ID is, the customer ID will be passed. So customer dot where c dot customer ID is equal to customer ID. What's the customer ID type? String and int. So it should be string customer ID. So where dot first or default.